Items I had purchased. Items my grandmother had left me. Items my parents had brought when they moved in. Items of questionable ownership. For the last category, I was ruthlessly honest. If I couldn't definitively prove something was mine, I put it in my parents' column. I wanted no legal or ethical gray areas that could come back to haunt me later. Next came the logistical planning. I needed a place to live temporarily, movers for my belongings, storage for my parents' possessions, new bank accounts at different institutions, a new phone number, a new email address, a plan for disappearing. I found a furnished short-term rental in a city about 2 hours away. I opened new accounts at a bank my parents had never used. I purchased a new phone with a new number. I created a new email address that couldn't be easily guessed. I meticulously gathered all my important documents, birth certificate, social security card, passport, insurance policies, investment accounts, and especially the deed to the house and my grandmother's will, and secured them in a safety deposit box at my new bank. As I worked through my checklist, I occasionally found myself hesitating. Was I overreacting? Then I'd replay the recorded conversation, hearing my father's contemptuous, "She's been a burden from the start," and my resolve would harden again. One afternoon, while sorting through a box of my grandmother's papers I'd kept, I found a letter she'd written to me but apparently never sent. It was dated just a month before she died. "My dearest Lily," it began. "I want you to know why I've made the decisions I have about my estate. Your parents have always expected things to be handed to them. When they wanted to borrow money for various schemes over the years, I watched them squander every opportunity without learning or growing. But you, my sweet girl, you've worked for everything you have. You understand the value of both money and hard work. I'm leaving you my home because I know you'll honor it, care for it, and use it as a foundation to build your own success, not as a crutch to avoid responsibility. Never doubt that you deserve every good thing that comes to you. I'm so proud of the woman you've become." Tears streamed down my face as I read her words. It was as if she had somehow foreseen exactly what would happen and was reaching across time to strengthen my resolve. The next day, I contacted a moving company and scheduled them for the following week. I arranged for a storage unit in my parents' names, paid 6 months in advance, and made sure the information would be mailed to them. Every night, I updated my planning document, crossing off completed tasks and adding new details as they occurred to me. I was operating with cold efficiency during the day, but at night, alone in what had once been my sanctuary, I often broke down. One evening, as I was boxing up family photos, I came across one of me as a little girl sitting on my father's shoulders at a fair. We were both laughing, my small hands gripping his forehead, his hands securely holding my legs. I remembered that day, the cotton candy he'd bought me, the stuffed animal he'd won by knocking down milk bottles. For a moment, I almost called off the whole plan. But then I remembered his voice. "She's been a burden from the start." The photo went into the box labeled, "Parents' Items." By the end of the 3rd week, Kyle, my real estate agent, had brought through several potential buyers. 2 had made offers, both under asking but within the range we had discussed. I accepted the hire, $1,915,000, from a corporate executive relocating to the area who could close quickly. The pieces were falling into place. The sale would close in just over 2 weeks. My parents would return from Europe. 3 days after that. Perfect timing. The morning of the closing, I woke up with a strange sense of calm. Over the past few weeks, I'd cycled through grief, rage, doubt, and determination. Today I just felt focused. I dressed carefully in a crisp blue suit, professional, confident, the armor I needed for what would be one of the most significant days of my life. The closing was scheduled for 10 a.m. at the title company's office. I arrived at 9:45, carrying a slim portfolio containing the few remaining documents I needed. Kyle was already there, chatting with the title agent. He gave me an encouraging smile as I approached. "Ready for this?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "More than ready." The buyers arrived precisely at 10 o'clock, Benjamin Porter, the executive, and his wife, Laura. They seemed pleasant enough, excited about the house and the neighborhood. Under different circumstances, I might have shared stories about the property, the beautiful magnolia tree my grandmother had planted, the way the light hit the kitchen in the morning. Today, I just wanted to get through the paperwork. The process was surprisingly anticlimactic. Sign here, initial there, sign again. With each signature, I was simultaneously severing a tie and securing my freedom. When the title agent finally slid the check across the table, $1,915,000 minus the remaining mortgage and closing costs, I felt nothing but relief. Congratulations, the agent said, shaking hands all around. Best of luck to all of you. Outside in the parking lot, Kyle caught up with me. You okay? He asked, genuine concern in his eyes. I will be, I said, managing a small smile. Thank you for everything, Kyle. I couldn't have done this without you. Happy to help, he replied. Though I'm still curious about the story behind all this. Maybe someday I'll tell you, I said. But right now, I have movers to meet. The moving company arrived at exactly noon. I had already packed most of my personal belongings, clearly labeled and separated from my parents' things. I supervised as they loaded my furniture, boxes, and suitcases into their truck bound for my new temporary apartment. My parents' belongings were handled with equal care, but different destination tags. Everything was photographed, inventoried, and loaded into a separate truck headed for the storage facility I'd rented in their names. I'd arranged for the access codes and payment information to be mailed to them at their current European hotel. As the movers worked, I walked through each room of the house, checking closets and drawers to ensure nothing was overlooked. In my parents' room, I found a small box hidden in the back of their closet. Curiosity got the better of me and I opened it. Inside were letters, dozens of them, from my grandmother to my parents over the years. I shouldn't have read them, but I couldn't help myself. They detailed years of financial requests, manipulative tactics, and my grandmother's growing disillusionment with her son and daughter-in-law. Daniel, one letter began, this is the last time I will provide financial assistance without a clear repayment plan. Your constant requests are straining our relationship, and I worry about the example you're setting for Lily. Another, dated just a year before her death, I'm deeply concerned about your expectation that my home will someday be yours. I've worked hard for everything I have, and I intend to leave my assets to those who will respect and preserve them. I suggest you begin making your own retirement plans that don't involve my property. I carefully replaced the letters in the box and added it to the items for storage, but I felt a renewed connection to my grandmother and her decision to leave me the house. She had seen through my parents long before I had. By late afternoon, both trucks were loaded and gone. I stood in the empty house, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. Without furniture, without photos, without the accumulated evidence of lives lived within these walls, it was just a structure again. Beautiful, valuable, but no longer mine. I walked through each room one final time. In the kitchen where I'd baked cookies with my grandmother. In the living room where we'd watched old movies together. In the garden where she'd taught me the names of flowers and how to nurture growing things. I hope you understand, I whispered, not sure if I was addressing my grandmother or the house itself. Finally, I placed the note I'd written on the granite countertop in the kitchen where it would be impossible to miss. Surprise. A burden did this. I took one last look around, then walked out the front door, locking it behind me. I dropped the keys through the mail slot, got into my car, and drove away without looking back. As I merged onto the highway heading toward my new temporary home, I felt something unexpected. Freedom. For perhaps the first time in my life, I was making a decision completely for myself, unburdened by familial obligation or the desperate need for approval. 6 days after the house officially changed hands, I got a call from my father, Daniel, that I let go to voicemail. The message, short and sharp, said, "Lily, call me, now." I didn't. 2 hours later came a flurry of missed calls from both him and my mother, Charlotte. Then a text. What the hell is going on? We just got back and someone else is living in the house. I didn't respond. Instead, I waited until evening and sent a brief, carefully worded email. Subject: House sale and storage information. Dear Daniel and Charlotte, as you are aware, the house legally belonged to me, as per Grandma Elizabeth's will. Given recent events and the content of the conversation I inadvertently overheard, I made the decision to sell the property. The sale has been finalized. The new owners now have full rights to the premises. Your personal belongings are safely stored at a facility located at 418 Grove Street. The unit is paid for 6 months in advance. Access codes and details have been mailed to your hotel. I will not be taking further calls or messages at this time. Sincerely, Lily. The next day, I received 22 emails from my mother ranging from shock to pleading to rage. My father's messages were shorter, angrier, and full of threats. I blocked their numbers. I created a filter in my email that directed anything from either of them to a folder I labeled noise. 2 weeks passed. Then I received a formal letter from an attorney representing my parents, claiming they had been illegally evicted, and demanding either financial compensation or the reversal of the sale. I forwarded the letter to my own attorney, Ms. Patricia Wong, who responded swiftly with documentation of ownership, the timeline of the sale, and a reminder that my parents had no legal tenancy, no rental agreement, and no claim to the property. That was the last I heard from their lawyer. For a time, I tried to settle into my new apartment and my new life. I focused on work, throwing myself into client meetings and home showings and closings. I went on long walks. I started cooking again. I tried therapy. Some days were better than others. One rainy Tuesday, I received a handwritten letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the tight, slanted script immediately. My mother. I almost threw it away. Instead, I opened it. Lily, I don't understand why you're doing this. We're your parents. We've sacrificed so much for you. To come home and find strangers in the house we lived in. For years, it was like a nightmare. Your father is furious. He says you've always been ungrateful, and maybe he's right. But I still believe you're a good person. I still believe you're the sweet girl I raised. Please, let's talk. Let's fix this. We're family. Love, Mom. I read it once. Then again. Then I placed it in a folder I labeled, proof. Because what stood out to me most wasn't the pleading or the guilt-tripping. It was the complete absence of accountability. Not once did she ask why I'd done what I did. Not once did she acknowledge the conversation I'd heard, the pain it had caused, or the years of subtle manipulation that led to it. They still saw themselves as victims. And they still saw me as their possession. That was the moment I knew I'd made the right decision. A month later, I received an unexpected invitation. A family friend, someone I'd known since childhood, was getting married and had invited me out of what I assumed was either obligation or an attempt to play peacekeeper. Against my better judgment, I decided to attend. It was there that I saw them, Daniel and Charlotte. They approached me during the reception, dressed impeccably, their faces stiff with something between anticipation and resentment. Lily, my mother began, we need to talk. I nodded once and gestured toward a quieter corner of the venue. Their words came out in a flurry, accusations, justifications, twisted retellings of the events. I let them speak. Then I pulled out my phone, tapped a button, and played the recording. The same one. She's been a burden from the start. My father's voice went pale with rage. My mother's eyes filled with tears. You recorded us, she whispered. You recorded yourselves, I said calmly. You called me. You forgot to hang up. They stared at me in silence. You asked for a conversation, I continued. This is mine, I'm done. I won't be financially supporting either of you ever again. I won't be your retirement plan, your backup account, or your emotional punching bag. We're done. And with that, I walked away. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just walked away. 6 months later, I was fully settled into my new life. I'd purchased a charming townhouse in Richmond and had transferred to our firm's office there. The change of scenery had been exactly what I needed. My new home was distinctly mine in a way my grandmother's house had never quite been. No family heirlooms, no shadows, just peace. Professionally, I was thriving. The fresh start had reignited my passion for real estate, especially helping first-time buyers. One couple told me after closing, you really want us to understand, not just sign. Everyone deserves to know what they're agreeing to, I replied, thinking of how differently my own story might have gone. In therapy, drive. Evelyn Palmer and I shifted from crisis to healing. You said you sometimes feel guilty for overreacting, she noted once. I nodded. Sometimes I wonder if I should have confronted them first. And what would they have said? That I misunderstood. That they were tired, stressed. And would that have changed the truth of what you heard? She nodded. What you experienced is called financial abuse. The word struck deep. Using money and guilt as control. Manipulation disguised as family duty. She continued, protecting yourself was the right response. That clarity changed me. I began researching financial abuse, how common it is, especially within families, and how little support exists. I pitched a workshop idea to my boss, Vanessa Martinez. A program for first-time homebuyers, especially women, teaching how to spot and prevent financial manipulation. She loved it. We launched the workshop, Building Foundations, Financial Autonomy in Major Life Decisions. Over 30 people showed up to the first session. After the third, a women's magazine featured me. Financial Freedom, Lily Taylor's mission to end family financial abuse. The article led to something unexpected, an email from my grandmother's sister, Aunt Rose. We met for lunch. Elizabeth would be so proud, she said. She faced the same struggles with your father. He never took accountability, but she saw herself in you. She never told me that. She didn't have to, Rose smiled. She showed it, in every decision she made for you. It confirmed everything. I'm making peace with it, I told her honestly. I can't change them, but I can build something better. On the 1-year anniversary of the house sale, I visited my grandmother's grave. I brought pink peonies, her favorite, and sat beside her headstone. I think I finally understand what you were trying to teach me, I whispered. About worth. About standing on your own. About love not needing to come with strings. The pain had transformed, not into forgiveness, but into acceptance. My parents were who they were. Their behavior reflected their limits, not my worth. The burden wasn't being their daughter. It was the exhausting effort of trying to earn love that should have been freely given. When I laid that burden down, I found something unexpected. Freedom. That evening, surrounded by my chosen family, I raised a glass in a quiet toast. To my grandmother. To the girl I used to be. To the woman I was becoming, unburdened, uncompromised, and finally, truly free. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to protect yourself from people who were supposed to love you? Sometimes, the hardest boundaries to set are with family. If my story resonated with you, please like, share, and comment below. You deserve relationships that lift you up, not weigh you down.